Somewhere out there is a bag of salad that looks completely ordinary. And right now, food like it has made more than 3,000 people across 31 states sick, and it seems to trace back to a single source. Here's the strange part. The people whose entire job is to find that source can't do it. Not because it's cleverly hidden, but because a year ago, we quietly switched off the system built to look. In a calm year, watching for outbreaks feels like paying people to stare at nothing happening. This week is what that decision costs, the bill that comes due the moment the calm ends. The illness has a clinical name, cyclosporiasis, but what matters is where it comes from, a microscopic parasite that travels on fresh produce. This isn't the kind of food poisoning that passes in a day. The nausea and the diarrhea can last for weeks. Since May, health departments across the country have counted more than 3,000 cases in 31, now 32 states. 86 people have ended up in the hospital. So far, no one has died. To feel the scale, look at Michigan alone. Over 1,500 cases in a state that normally sees about 50 in a whole year. That's more than 30 times what a normal year looks like, all in one place. And weeks in, no one can say where it's coming from. Everyone agrees it's food. This parasite almost always arrives on produce, in the past on raspberries, bagged salad, cilantro, basil. But no farm, no supplier, no single product has been named. This is the detail that turns bad luck into a system story. A year ago, in the summer of 2025, the agency responsible for spotting exactly this kind of outbreak scaled back its surveillance network. Tracking this particular parasite became optional. Today, out of everything that network used to track, only 2 germs are still watched everywhere. Food safety experts warned at the time that this would make outbreaks harder to catch. A year later, here's one that is very hard to catch. It would be easy to blame slow agencies for this and leave it there. But produce outbreaks arrive every single summer. This is a routine event, not a freak one, and the people investigating have done it many times before. What's different this time is simple and a little strange. The tool they would normally use to trace the source was switched off before the outbreak even started. And that points at a pattern worth pausing on. The one this channel keeps finding underneath the news. Again and again, we switch off the systems that watch for rare disasters right up until the disaster arrives. To see why this keeps happening, you have to understand what surveillance really is. It isn't paperwork, it's a sensor. On their own, one person with food poisoning in Michigan and another in Texas are just 2 unrelated bad. Surveillance is the thing that connects them. Same parasite, same genetic fingerprint, so almost certainly the same source. Without it, 3,000 connected cases look like 3,000 separate ones, and the single pattern that would point back to one farm never comes into focus. Switch the sensor off in 2025 and you're simply blind in 2026. Now here's why that sensor is always the first thing to be cut. Its value is invisible in a normal year. When it's working, outbreaks get caught early and stay small, so nothing dramatic ever happens, which makes it look like you're paying people to watch for nothing. The better it does its job, the more wasteful it seems. That's the trap at the very center of this. The reward for good surveillance is a disaster that never happens, and you cannot see or take credit for a disaster that never happened. On top of that sits a second problem, the food itself. Even with a perfect sensor, a single contaminated batch from one large processor can be on shelves in 30 states within days. The food moves faster than any investigation can follow it, so by the time anyone realizes there's a problem, it is already everywhere. We have seen the shape of this before, somewhere that feels completely different. Earthquakes. A building code is the same kind of quiet safeguard. You pay for it now, and its reward is a catastrophe that quietly never arrives, decades from now. So it gets shaved down, and the whole bill arrives at once, the moment the ground finally moves. Different disaster, identical trap. So the flaw here isn't that anyone is incompetent, it's that we keep underfunding the watching, because in every calm year, the watching looks like money spent on nothing at all. So how do you stop being blind? 3 very different systems each answer that, and none of them is simply spending more on the same monitoring. The first is the way Europe does it. The European Union runs a single rapid alert network. The moment one country flags a contaminated product, the warning reaches every other country within hours, and it's backed by a law that requires every food business to know one step back and one step forward, exactly who they bought from and exactly who they sold to. A trace that takes American investigators weeks can take European ones a single day because the map already exists by law before anyone gets sick. The cost is real. This is expensive, it's bureaucratic, and it depends on the kind of central coordination that a country of 50 separate states tends to resist. The second answer leans on less government, not more. Instead of building a bigger public censor, you put the cost on the seller. Make whoever sells the food responsible for what's in it and let the largest buyers and the insurers demand traceability as the price of doing business. This already happens. A single giant retailer can tell every one of its suppliers, digitize your supply chain or you're out. And that moves faster than any regulator ever could. It's the same idea as holding a builder personally responsible for the tower they pour. The cost. It only reaches the parts of the market that have a powerful buyer. It can rot into box-ticking audits, and it can quietly crush the small farms that can't afford all the paperwork. The third answer doesn't try to find the source faster at all. It shrinks the damage. If a head of lettuce is grown and eaten inside the same region, it can only ever make that one region sick, and the source is obvious within a day. A centralized processor shipping to 30 states is what turns a local problem into a national one. The cost is one we chose on purpose, for good reasons. Short, local supply chains are less efficient and more expensive, and you simply can't grow everything, everywhere, all year round. Notice what none of these depends on. Better people, Europe's speed, a retailer's leverage, a short chain's small footprint. Each one designs the blindness out instead of hoping someone spots the danger in time. So come back to those 3,000 people. They aren't sick because anyone is stupid. They're sick because turning the watching off is easy and cheap today. Living without it is ruinously expensive the moment an outbreak slips through. That cost just doesn't show up until later. And this is so much bigger than one parasite on one salad. Almost every safeguard that works quietly runs into the same trap. Disease, surveillance, bridge inspections, aircraft maintenance, the emergency stockpile nobody has touched in years. The better each one does its job, the more it looks like waste, because a crisis that has been prevented leaves nothing behind for you to point at, which means the calmest, safest feeling moment is exactly the moment the watching is easiest to switch off. And switching it off costs nothing at all, right up until the 1 week it costs everything. So the real question this week isn't who was too slow to find the lettuce. It's quieter and it's about you. What is nobody watching right now? Simply because for the moment, nothing bad is happening.